Good to see you. You guys aren't tired yet, are you? Can I get a hell no? Hell no!
What I've learned about failure that I want to share with all of you is that it can do one of two things. It can cause you to quit and give up, which I've done plenty of times. Or if you really pay attention, it can teach you how to do better, where to do better, and help you succeed. It's consistency, effort, and discipline. And this is the tough one, being honest with yourself about how you sit with each of these things.
With the toothbrush, like this.
Thank you for all of the kind comments, messages about the new album, and even the little coaching video tips that I've been posting. I'm glad that they're helping some of you.
To Salt Lake Rock Renaissance, the podcast. My guest today is Wil Martin, founder and lead vocalist of alt metal band Earshot, a project that's been developed and evolved since its debut in 1999 through multiple periods of loss, hiatus, release, and renewal. After the original lineup separated in 2002, Earshot spent years largely quiet until recently. The band has reemerged with an impressive new chapter for old and new fans alike, including the completion of a tour this past fall, their first since 2010, as well as their October 2025 release of their amazing new fourth album, Humaning, produced by the legendary Johnny K. Outside of Earshot, Wil is also a personal development coach and music producer. And that lens, how we grow, fail, and choose to keep going, is a big part of this conversation. Plus, he gives great hugs. So, Wil, how are you feeling about Earshot's most recent evolution now that you've finished your first tour, released your first album within this new chapter?
It feels like riding a bike. You know, it's a different bike, but it operates the same.
Like it's got the same rules, but it's maybe a newer model.
Right. Maybe it's a little faster. Maybe it's got a couple extra gears.
It's upgraded.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point, right? You hope anyway that each time you get back on the bike, you're on a bike that's a little bit better than the last one.
Yeah. And I think sometimes the in-between times can be our times that we work on that and work on improving our tool and what that bike looks like the next time that we're able to use it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's an important piece of evolving, right?
Yeah, I would agree with that. Speaking of evolution, who or what do you believe has shaped the way you think about growth the most?
Oof. Man, so many. I guess I would have to start with well, my mom for many years, you know, she's also a coach. She's done it for over 30 years. She's been doing it professionally. And after that, I would say my great grandparents, you know, they spent a lot of time raising me, you know, throughout my formidable years. My coach, I have a coach that I coach. I get coaching from Jack. It's great. One of the best in the fucking world. So good.
That answers one of my other questions. I was going to ask you if you had a coach or if you self-coach or what.
He's a fucking wizard. He's a magician. He's a fucking wizard. And then, you know, my small circle of friends that I have, you know, have been fortunate enough to be able to surround myself with friends that aren't afraid to give me feedback on things when I ask for it. And not to pat myself on the back, but I'm pretty sure they would say that that's because at least with them, and maybe I'm probably not like this with everybody, but um, I take their feedback and critique pretty well. I don't get defensive about it because I trust them. So that's probably why, I don't take it good from everybody, because I don't know everybody, that well or that intimately to be able to take it that way. But so I have lots of good influence, I think in my life that's helped me to, sort of search um and try to answer things and challenges the best that I can.
It sounds like familial roots are important to you. Are there any formative lessons you believe most shaped who you are today and how you fill the roles you play in your life?
As I said earlier, my great grandparents, I spent a lot of time growing up with them. My great grandmother was like a mother to me, and my great uncle was like a father to me. And, they were immigrants here from Mexico. They migrated, or my great grandmother migrated here, um, way back in the early 1900s. And they went through a lot of challenge, um, in such a way that most people today wouldn't even, I don't think, would be able to handle, the kinds of challenges that they had to live in and overcome. And they did it happily, and they never complained about it. I only heard these stories that they had, which are some of the most unbelievable. Like, I literally want to write a book about some of the stories that they endured, but because they're so inspirational.
Or an
Um,
album?
I don't know if I could translate that into an album, but it's just the only reason why I ever heard about these stories was because I was curious, about some of the stuff that they went through. Otherwise, they they loved the opportunity to be here despite some of the pretty awful challenges that they had to endure, back then. Um, they were happy. They weren't angry. They weren't bitter. They never complained or talked about how unfair it was. They taught me the value of, and the lesson that life isn't always fair. Life is going to sometimes be tough. It's going to be tougher more times than it is easy. And you just get through it. You figure it out, and you don't complain about it. You just do it, and you get through it and do the hard work. And that's how they built a great life. They had a great family. They had all of the things. They had a house, they had a car, they had clothes, they, you know, raised a great family. Um, they literally came from nothing, and had everything stacked against them, and they still figured it out. So that, I think, is probably the most inspiring part or people in my life that still sticks with me today.
I would agree with that. It sounds like you had some really good role models in how to evolve and adapt. And a lot of artists wouldn't be able to do what you've done with Earshot after such a long hiatus. I think without that lesson having been learned early.
Yeah, I think the tough part, the more, for lack of a better term, the more being able to detach from all of the feelings that normally eat people alive, being able to separate from that and really just get, you know, back into doing whatever it is that you're trying to do, and not sitting in the I can't do it because this, or this isn't work, so I can't, like, that came more from my mom. She's a tough cookie. She's a no nonsense, tell it like it is, and oftentimes we'll give you feedback on things whether you want it or not, and whether you want to hear it or not. So I think that's where I get that type of tenacity, that honesty. Um, she's taught me that honesty can sometimes be tough. Tough, to be vulnerable enough to communicate a truth, because it inevitably someone may not like the truth. It's easier when you know that someone's going to like the truth, right? If it's something good that you know that they're going to like. But if it's something that somebody isn't going to find very exciting, it's tough. Nobody wants to upset anybody. And that kind of honesty is the kind of honesty and truth that a lot of people don't talk about. And it's easy to kind of want to skip over. So she taught me, the value of that, though, and also understanding that not everybody is going to like whatever the honest truth is about certain things, and that's okay.
And I think with honesty also comes integrity. I think they kind of go hand in hand.
100%.
What does integrity mean to you when no one else is watching?
Well, I mean, integrity runs pretty deep, right? There's a lot of different layers to integrity. I think integrity is, to me, my personal definition of it is doing things that are true to you, right? Doing things, and that doesn't mean that you can't try different new things. But are they honest? Are they in alignment with, other values and principles that you have? Consistency. I think consistency is a big part of that one. I think actions and words aligning, I think, fall into that. So I think there's a lot of different pieces to that, quite honest.
Do you believe there's a kind of honesty that only shows up when music is involved?
Not for me. Now, I will say that there are, well, many times when I'm writing, like, for example, I was just talking to someone about this the other day. When we just did this last tour with Saliva, and as you pointed out, it's been about a dozen years, since we've done like a full, serious tour. And, we've done one-offs and we've done festivals, and those are never long enough to really like get into it. And so, when you're doing a more extensive tour and you're playing kind of the same batch of songs, you start to, at least for me, I start to kind of think about what I'm singing and what I'm saying lyrically. And what was interesting about this tour, this last one that we did, was even songs like, I mean, all of them, even Not Afraid, for example, like there was one moment, I forget what city we were in, but I was singing that song and I literally, in my brain, I'm going, holy shit, like I never really knew what that song was about. Now, what I mean by that is, yes, there was something that inspired me when I was writing it to write the lyrics. And I oftentimes talk about that. Like sometimes as artists, we get inspired to write about something, but the meaning of that lies underneath that inspiration, right? So, for example, Not Afraid was inspired by, the ache of the relationship that I was in at that time. That's what inspired it. But when I look back at the lyrics, what I was writing about was not about the relationship. It was about what was happening underneath the hood for me emotionally. And so on this tour, it finally clicked like, holy shit, this is what I was writing about. And it's so fucking cool because it's almost like your subconscious is writing these notes, and sometimes you don't decode them for, in my case, years later. And I literally just kind of got choked up a little bit. I mean, nobody probably noticed it, but internally I was like, oh my God, like this is really hitting. Like I'm starting to understand what this song is about me personally, like what that's touching inside of me. Um, the questions, that I've spent a lifetime trying to figure out and understand, like these lyrics are starting to like connect the dots, and that's really cool. That was a really cool experience.
Yeah, I believe strongly that personality and self is something that's always growing and evolving. Like it's a fluid thing. It's not a solid state. And it sounds like what you're talking about is almost like when you wrote it, it meant something to that version of yourself, but now you've grown and changed to a point that it means something else to this, more evolved, more knowledgeable version and more experienced version of you.
Well, I think that, we spend, most of us anyway, spend our entire life trying to understand ourselves, right?
Mm-hmm.
We think we're trying to understand the world, but really we're trying to understand ourselves. And I mean, I know I have. And it's so crazy to me how, back when I was 20 something, when I wrote that song, like I already knew it was trying to tell me. I just didn't get it yet, right? I didn't get the message. The message is becoming clear now. So to me, it's almost like a new song again, like, and takes on a whole new meaning. And I don't normally listen very often, to my own music. But since that happened, I've literally gone back and like listened, and it's almost like meeting yourself for the first time. It's so crazy, but it's amazing.
Yeah, I can imagine that it is. It seems like almost like your former self is handing your current self a gift of like, here's this understanding and like deeper depth and like new meaning and new life to something that is and I think it adds longevity to that too. And I think fans also have that same experience of like, listening to a favorite song 100,000 times, and then it's the next time that all of a sudden it means something different because you're at a different place in your life and it needs to mean something different for you.
Well, and if I'm being honest, also, like throughout the years, I mean, thousands of people have come up to me, throughout my career and said, dude, this song, or, Getaway, or Wait, or fill in the blank. Go, man, that song saved my life, or it changed my life. And I always, even though I appreciated it, I never fully understood. Like, to me, I'm thinking to myself, like, okay, it's a great song. Life changing, life saving. But since that moment happened that I'm telling you about, like now I get it. And and the other cool thing about that happening was on this tour in particular, I really felt more connected to the audience more than I ever have before. Like because now I understood what it was about the songs that they loved. And now it's just what's hard for me to believe, and I'm still kind of perplexed by it, is how I didn't get my own message. Like that's that's the crazy part. Like it's taken me, you know, years to understand and have it click and go, oh. So again, it's almost like my subconscious was laying it all out for me, just because that's how I write. I just write very, you know, conscious stream of thought. Yeah, I do have a muse, something that inspires me to write. But once I figure that out, like I just start writing, and I just go with it. I've never felt the need to always understand what I'm writing. And anytime I've tried to write songs where I'm like, okay, this line's got to make sense with this line, and like, it's just a big fail. And
you overthink it.
Yeah, it's too much. And so it's just really cool that, and even more beautiful than that is a lot of the messages in a lot of our songs are messages that I need to hear right now, right? So it's really cool, and I'm really thankful that I've been able to do that, not just for other people, because and we'll get into that in a little bit, but that's why I got into music, was to help other people, not really help myself. But it's really cool that it has in that way, because I didn't expect that.
I'm going to take kind of a left turn here. Speaking of helping other people,
I like left turns.
How do you decide when helping someone's healthy and when it crosses into taking a kind of responsibility for them?
Well, what I've learned is you can't help people unless they're willing and ready to take responsibility. I make this really clear when I'm working with clients and people. I'm not in the space to tell people how to solve their problems. I'm here to help you figure out how to solve your problems, how to help you figure out how to solve your problems. There's no way I or anybody in this world could know the intricacies and the context of your life. Only we do. I think, as a coach, the most important thing, at least for me, that how I approach it is, my belief is that you already know the solution, the answer. The only thing holding anybody back, and I know that I'm speaking from experience for myself, it's a few things. There's some of it's overthinking, some of it which stems from fear. That could be part of it. It could just be procrastination. It could just be being lazy. It could just be a lack of passion and excitement. It could be a lack of creativity. And that's what I try to supply when I'm working with somebody. I'm not here to answer it for you. Otherwise, that would make me a consultant. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a consultant on anybody's life. Like, I don't believe that there's anybody you can consult in business, you can consult in those types of things. But when it comes to people's life, if you do that, then you're doing exactly what you just asked, part of your question. You're taking the responsibility and the accountability away from them. So if I tell you, oh, here's your problem, okay, we'll do X, Y, and Z. All right. And then you hang up the phone and you go do X, Y, and Z, and it doesn't work. Guess what you get to do? You get to go, well, it didn't work, and it's your fault. It didn't work. You see what I'm saying? So it takes away all the accountability instead of you coming up with solutions X, Y, and Z, and saying, hey, that didn't work. Now you get to ask yourself why. What didn't work? And what are some other things that you could do differently, right? That's part of the deal. That's the only way you find value and growth, there's no growth in having somebody tell you what to do and how to do it or what the answers are. And I know there's a lot of coaches out there that do that. It's not the way that I was taught to coach, and I've worked with coaches that tell me, "Oh, just do X, Y, and Z." It doesn't work, and I don't grow from it. It's safe because somebody else is telling you what to do. So
Right.
there's a comfort in that you don't have to. Part of the beauty and the growth is failing, is trying something and failing and being disappointed. That's part of it. And for a lot of people, I get it. It's a scary thing. Nobody wants to be wrong. That's what it's about. There's a strong resistance for a lot of us in being wrong. We just want to be right because it feels good to be right. But there's not a lot of growth in being right, though. It just feels good to be right, but there's no growth there.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It seems like for you, coaching is more of it has to be a collaborative thing, and both people have to kind of embrace the experimental aspects of life. Like, let's try this, try that, see what works, what doesn't. Like, and I think that's part of helping people figure things out is giving them tools, but also like different perspectives and pointing out things that they might not have seen otherwise, that might change the paths that they choose to take, and that might lead to more clarity for them.
Well, and I think, like, if you're talking about a business, right, and you own a business, and if I'm a successful business owner, well, then I can tell you how to build or run a successful business. If I have a successful marriage, then I could probably, give you some tips, to have a great marriage. But who has a successful, perfect life? Nobody. So how can anybody tell anybody, do this, do that, don't do this, don't do that? I think we can suggest things and we can talk about things that have worked and haven't worked for us, and maybe that resonates with some people. But I see, and you've seen it too, I'm sure. It's all over social media, people telling people how to do this and do that. Oh, and just do this and your life will magically be better. Or it's just, and then the unfortunate part about that style of coaching is that when people do that and it doesn't work, they're not looking at it the way that I'm talking about, which is, that's someone else's lived experience. They take it as, I must suck because I took this person's
failure
advice.
Into it.
Right. I took this person's advice and it didn't work, and it worked for them, I think, when it probably hasn't. It's, there's no one size fits all solution here. And they walk away feeling like they failed. And that's the unfortunate part.
When it's not that they failed, it's that trying an approach exactly the way it worked for someone else just didn't work for them.
Right. Or there was a lack of context. And that's what happens when, you take coaching into a, that sort of lane of, I'm going to, tell you what to do to fix this type of thing. Like I said, we all know how to fix our shit. We all know what the problems are. We know the why. Maybe we don't see the why, or maybe we don't see the how. So a good coach is going to help you find that. You're going to figure it out.
Or maybe it's just that we don't feel safe enough to, and we need someone to say, hey, it's safe to try this.
Yeah, sometimes that's a large part of the work that I have to do is shepherding people past the I have to feel safe part. the truth is you don't have to feel safe. And oftentimes there's never going to be a time where you feel safe, right? I mean, it's not change, significant change doesn't feel safe. That's part of the deal is that it's uncomfortable, right? And we correlate oftentimes safety with comfort. They're not the same thing. They're oftentimes different. So, a large part of the work is moving past that and getting, creating an environment where this isn't about safety. You're safe. This is about comfort.
Right.
Two different things.
This kind of tacks onto that, but what qualities and traits do you believe are essential for personal development coaching to be effective in facilitating long-lasting personal growth and improvement, both for in a client and a coach?
Good question. Being willing to be 100% honest. 100% honest. Being willing to name things. Being willing to say something that's honest. And when I say honest, that doesn't mean being sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
Because as my mom always says, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. But oftentimes, even when something is well said, it pokes the wound, right? That's inside us, and that wound is oftentimes the thing that's stopping us, that's got us stuck. So honesty breeds trust, typically, right? If you're honest, that's what starts to build trust. I know, for example, with my coach, I know that he's going to be honest with me. Therefore, I trust him, right? He's going to tell me, he's going to challenge me.
And it sounds like the same thing with your friend, your close friends. When you go to them and say, hey, I need some help with this, you trust them to give you perspective or clarity or something that is in your best interest.
Right. They know me. They know a lot of the wounds, and that's what I appreciate about them is they're willing, given that, they're willing to challenge me. I was laughing with a friend of mine the other week that I've known for many, many years. We had this argument years back, where I was going, through a little bit of a rough patch, and I got upset with some feedback that she gave me, and I just disagreed with it. And it wasn't that she was wrong about it. I just didn't want to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I left, and I was upset, and we were laughing because she said to me, she goes, let me tell you what's going to happen. So you're mad at me. You're going to leave. You're probably not going to talk to me for 2 or 3 months, but we'll start talking again, and then everything will be fine. And it's funny. We laugh because that's exactly in that instance. That's what happened. Sometimes we just need space to kind of admit certain truths to ourselves, right? And go, that's why oftentimes things sting, is because there's a truth behind it. As I often tell people, people that I work with, when they're talking to me about oftentimes family or relationship thing that they're going through, and they say, well, they said this and it just really fucking annoys me and pisses me off. And when I ask the question of, is your skin the color green? What if I told you your skin was green? Well, that's not true. Okay, well, would you get mad at it? No. Well, why? It's not true. Well, because I know it's not true. So if it's so these other things that are upsetting you that your family or your significant other are telling you aren't true, then why are we getting upset? So, and it's usually because there's some truth behind it, or there's some thread, that runs parallel to whatever, maybe it has to do with the person. But it's never because there's nothing behind it. There's always something behind that. It's just
It
a matter of
sounds
uncovering it.
it sounds like her being right almost made some part inside you uncomfortable, realizing that she was right and that you were gonna have some work to do.
Yeah, and and I think the irony in that um, was that she's a person that lives in truth and being honest. She's always willing to be honest, and she didn't say anything to me derogatory. She wasn't mean spirited about it. In fact, she tried to humor it and lighten it up a bit. I just was so had this feeling of being so deeply offended, even though it was true. It was almost what I think the reaction I was having was, I'm offended that you are telling me that you see this rather than you're right,
Yeah.
or perhaps I just wasn't ready to see it at that.
You felt exposed, it sounds
Yeah,
like.
could have been that, but the really cool thing is that she wasn't afraid to say, "Hey, I'm going to tell it to you," and hey, okay, you're going to be upset and you're going to be mad at me, and I'm okay with that. I understand it, and I know you're not going to want to talk to me, but I'm not going to hold it against you. I'll be here. I'll be here once you settle down, however long it takes. And see, that's the mark of a true friend. That right there builds trust for me. That's the safety, the kind of safety. When I talk about safety, it's having that knowing that you're going to have that honesty, that truth, and it's out of a place from love and care and connection, not from wanting to be right.
And in situations, it sounds like that one, um, a a lot of growth comes from that, especially internal growth. Realizing that they were right, but also that you have the power to do something about it.
Right. Right. And that's the part that we oftentimes forget, right? We feel like we don't have any choice. That's another thing that I work with and talk about a lot with clients is choice. I'm a big believer in choice. We always have choice. Even when someone says we don't have a choice, you do have a choice. Um, I've had this go with my own coach. We way many years back when I first started working with him and learning from him. He even went so far as to say you have a choice when you're dying. And I went, how do you have a choice when you're dying? You're dying. Like that's it. Well, you still have a choice. How? What choice do you have? You're dying. You can't. Well, you have a choice about how you feel before you die. So therefore, you have a choice about how you die. Now you don't have a choice about around the circumstances. Maybe sometimes, you don't have a choice if you get into a terrible accident. God forbid. You don't have a choice sometimes about the circumstance, but you have a choice about how you feel about it. Now it's up to us whether we decide to act on that or not, but it's there.
We're going to take another left turn, but I mostly because I have a feeling that choice plays a part in this. What do artists or what might artists underestimate or wrongly assume about what it takes to succeed in the mainstream music industry?
That's a really good question. I don't really know the definitive answer to that because I have talked to so many artists that are trying to get noticed, and everyone has their own idea of what it takes. And to be honest with you, I think it's different for everybody. There's no, just like in life, there's no one path that works for everybody. If that were the case, then every band would succeed. So I'm not sure. I think that if I understand your question, I think if somebody were to come to me and say, hey, I'm thinking about starting a band, what advice would you give me? I guess my first question would be, why do you want to do it? What's for what purpose? Like, what are you trying to do? If the answer is money, you're doomed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because you might not make it. You might, but if that's your sole reason, if that's the number one reason, now let me rephrase that. It's okay to desire to make money. But if that's your top spot reason why you want to do it, then that's not gonna get you through the hard days and months and weeks and challenges, because it's not going to be there. So it can be on your list, but it shouldn't be in the top 3 or 4.
Yeah. And I feel like anybody who gives that answer, like at the core of that really is ego that needs to be let go of. That's just going to hold them back. And if they're unable to reconcile that and kind of like, let go of some of that ego and expectation, then they're probably not going to succeed.
It's going to be tough. It's going to be tough when you don't have the outcome that you're looking for, to point to. Outside of that, I mean, I think, the why, the purpose, the point of what you're doing, it comes into play. And because if you have a really strong conviction about the why that you have doing it, that's what's going to carry you through the tough parts of this business.
And I think a lot of those whys that work are ones that are internal, not external.
Yeah.
You have to, at the core of it, be doing it for yourself to an extent. Or,
to a big extent, for sure. I personally couldn't tell you really many other reasons why I do it. I mean, it's not because I'm making tons of money. That's not happening. Oftentimes, I mean, because we just started again after, almost 14 years, we're lucky in the fact that, when we go out and do shows and tours, like because we have a name and there's still people out there that remember us, and promoters and concert promoters that remember us, they're happy to have us come out and play, and they'll pay us enough to be able to do it, so it doesn't cost us anything. So, we're not where we left off 10 years ago where we were making decent money. We're having to build again, but fortunately for us, building again means it's not costing us anything. Whereas a lot of new bands, it's costing you a lot of money to be out there. I mean, I've seen people put their life savings. I've seen the whole thing, and it's just it's tough enough how we're doing it. It's still, for some guys, it's taking off work. But that's costing money. If you think about it, it's the same thing. But what's lucky for us is that it's not really costing us what it would cost a brand new band. And my heart goes out to those people, because it's tough. It's really, really a tough time. And I don't know that there's ever been an easier time per se. I think there's less desire to help sort of support new talent. Like, record companies are they're not really doing much anymore. I mean, and if they are, they're just really kind of small little deals, and there's not a whole lot that they can do, to support. Whereas back in the day when we were signed, we had sizable budgets, to get things done. We could make meaningful progress. Now a lot of those kind of deals are dried up. They just don't exist anymore. It's a whole different climate, and it's kind of a everybody's out for themselves kind of thing.
Yeah. I almost feel like the concept and system of a label has kind of abandoned artists in that sense. And because a lot of artists have had to, turn to the independent kind of thing and do a lot of stuff in-house and do it themselves.
Mhm.
And that takes a lot of sacrifice. Like that's also another big reason why I started SLC Rock Renaissance, is because there's so much back end work between promotion and um, just getting yourself out there, that takes, I think, takes away from energy that artists can be putting into the art.
Right.
And for me, that is my art.
Mhm.
I'm a graphic designer, I'm a website designer, but also like I love helping artists visually represent that sound and like the energy that they're trying to put out. And like if I can use my art to help support and facilitate someone else's, then like that's, I think, at the core of what being an artist is, and like inspire other people to take their own art further.
Yeah.
Um, and we've kind of been talking about money, but how do you protect creative integrity inside of systems that monetize it?
I mean, you really can't. Um, it's whack-a-mole. I mean, um, so I used to work with the Misfits, and of course, there are all kinds of bootleggers out there that put out Misfits T-shirts. I've seen Misfits socks, like all this stuff that I personally know they're not creating and putting out there. These are bootleggers, and they have someone that watches all this stuff, and um, I asked him, I go, like, it's got to be crazy. Like, with all, like, you can find stuff on Amazon and eBay. And he's like, dude, it's literally an all day, every day job finding all of this and cease and desist and stopping it. Like, it's just so much, and paperwork and emails and time and phone calls. And it's just, so it's tough. You can't really. It's the Wild West, and um, I think there's two ways to look at it. We can look at it like we're being treated unfairly and robbed, or that's one way to look at it. Or you can look at it like, well, at least it's out there, and it's flattering to know that people want to be connected or associated with the work that I've done. So again, it goes back to choice. How do we want to look at it? How do we want to experience that? I know that there's nothing that I can do. There's not anything that most anyone can do to fully stop what you're talking about. And there's just it's just not possible. Not with the internet, everything being as accessible as it is. It's an impossible ask.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Um, and speaking of money, like obviously the music industry is a business.
Mhm.
Um, what makes a band different from a business? And is there a line where a band crosses into becoming a business?
I think it's the same thing. I think I think there's two parts to a band. There's the artistic side, and then there's the business side.
Mhm.
But bands are very much a living, breathing business entity, just like if you started a clothing business or um, a tech company. It still operates. It's money in, money out. You still have to have money to pay for things. Um, you got to have money to start. I mean, just touring, you got to have a bus.
Mhm.
You got to have fuel for the bus. You got to have a driver for the bus. You got to maintain that. And that's just the bus we're talking about. We're not talking about we need a place, for people to sleep. We need, food. Like there's so much. And then
Mhm.
merch. Well, you got to make the merch to be able to have merch to sell. So that's an investment. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it it's very much a business. And I think that's the piece that a lot of people miss You know, we see our favorite band and we don't oftentimes know the work that went into not just the writing the music, but like, for example, with our record, with Humaning, like we talked to a few labels, you know, when we had our demos, we had like, you know, 4 or 5 songs that we had kind of demoed and they weren't all the way finished because that's not how I do it. I don't like investing the time to write the whole song. I'll do a verse and a chorus. And you know, if I live with it and I love it still and it inspires me to finish it, then I will. So we were, to be fair, we were passing those around and a lot of labels were kind of, well, the idea sounds great, but like what's the whole, like, you know, so there just wasn't anything where I felt was a fit. So rather than continue beating a dead horse, as it were, or making the mistake of forcing a partnership that didn't feel right, I just decided, fuck it. I'll pay to make the record myself. You know, it's like my old business manager used to say, if if what you want out there doesn't exist or it's not the way you want it to look, then sometimes you got to put your money where your mouth is, and that's what I definitely did on this record. But I'm glad I did. I love this record. I think it came out great, and
I do too, and I think it really paid off. I really do. It's one of my favorite albums ever.
well, thank you for saying that. I mean, it's one of my favorite records, and it's one of the best investments, you know, that I've made in recent times. And it came out exactly better than what I imagined. And everybody did a great job on it. So I'm glad to hear that you and I know a lot of other people have, you know, written in over the months since we've released it. And I'm just glad that everybody likes it and loves it as much as we do.
Yeah. And speaking of music and this new album, what themes do you believe are at the core of the music that you create with Earshot? And do the themes on this album look any different than prior albums? And does this album have a through line theme?
Um, well, Humaning was written right in the middle of a pretty turbulent relationship that I was in at that time. So it's literally an open look into, or you know, it's my story of my experience of it, and I think that's what makes this record a lot different than our previous ones. The other records that I wrote were still about relationship and self-awareness and growth type things that inspired it. The difference with those records is I was kind of looking in the rearview mirror for inspiration with those songs. And with this record, I was in the throes of it. Like I was going through it. So a lot of, you know, lyrically, it's very raw. Like that's exactly, and even when I listen to it now, it takes me back and I go, sometimes it's hard to listen to because it just dredges up. Like at the same time, it also kind of serves as a marker, you know, to look at where I am now and where I came from. Mm-hmm. And how much, you know, time has changed not just my feeling that I was feeling at that time, but also my perspective on it and what I've learned, you know, and how I've grown from it. So I would say that's what's different about this record. And I think that's what I would say is what people are connecting to most about this record, more so than our previous records, is because I think people are hearing that same raw emotion that a lot of people experience and whether it's going good or not so good, they're hearing verbalize that same experience or similar, or they're hearing or experiencing the same thing once they're trying to move out of it or out of it. So I think that's what it's just the more raw.
Mhm.
Here it is, not it's different. I've noticed when I'm writing from hindsight versus I'm fucking in the shit right now. And holy shit. Um it taking the advice from my coach that I was working with, his suggestion to me was write it raw. Don't sugarcoat it. Write it raw, how it is. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable and write. Don't think about, well, but I don't know, this doesn't like, I don't want to sound like I'm soft or like, I don't think about that. Like, just write it. And I think that was a suggestion that really made the difference for me in my approach to writing this record lyrically.
It sounds like he is asking you to be honest with yourself, but also like not overthink it.
Well, and some of those, well, the relationship that I was in it once I finished recording the record. So it was uncomfortable to play the record back. And I'm sure it was probably uncomfortable for them to listen to, but that was the truth. That was, my truth, my perception of it. And, but I had to be willing to have that uncomfortableness. And again, I think that's what I was a little resistant about at first. It was like, that was my rationalization when I would talk about it. Well, but if I do, then it's going to make, our relationship that already feels like it's hanging on by a thread. Like this could cause it to push it over the edge. I don't know if I want to do that. And it's like, well, if your relationship is hanging on by that thin of a thread, then do you have a relationship anyways? And and since when does the truth, you know, be the cause of a relationship failing? That's not why it failed. It failed for many other reasons, besides, sharing your feeling or your experience or your perception of it. And that resonated with me. Like, you know what? That's right. Like I shouldn't be ashamed, to talk about my experience of things, whether or not somebody agrees with it or not, or doesn't see it the same way. That's okay. It's not a contest. It's my own lived experience, and and it is what it is. So I think that's my favorite part about this record. It's written in the moment and not hindsight. It's literally in the direct experience of what I was going through and living at the time.
Can I take a guess as to what the main themes are on that
Sure.
album? Okay. Loss and grief. That's
Yeah.
kind of a underlying one. Dissociation from human connection.
Mm-hmm.
Coming to terms with solitude and learning to embrace it.
Yep.
And self-empowerment to better yourself, to come through all of that and make it a positive in your life that you can learn from.
I think those are all spot on. I think also I would add to that, if you listen to the record from beginning to end, like you'll hear, like this is not I'm in a, really difficult relationship and it's all their fault, right? This is not a Taylor Swift record, right? You'll hear some of that, but then you'll also hear songs where I'm taking accountability.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's because that's how my brain works. Like I've never, not that I can think of anyway, there isn't one single relationship, whether it's like a a love relationship or a friendship or a business relationship. There isn't one relationship that when I think about it or was going through it at the time, there's not one relationship where I've ever said it's all their fault. So they're the whole reason why this is all fucked up. I will also add in, and here's what I did to contribute to it. So I'm always trying to square these things because I genuinely want to understand things. And to understand something, you have to put in all of the elements. You can't just put in the ones that make you look good and the other person bad. You have to put into the equation. If you want the right answer, then you have to put in all of the data. You can't omit
Exactly.
stuff.
That, I mean, I say all the time, I look at every human interaction I have as an opportunity to trade like lived experience data sets.
Mhm.
Like I'll give my data and you give me yours so that we can both understand the situation and whatever it is that's shared there better with
Yeah,
more clarity. And it's there's always like a data exchange. You teach other people about yourself and they teach you about themselves too. Um, and just you have to be aware but also like present enough to want to hear that
right.
and to learn from it.
Agreed. Um, well, as you know, a lot of people that people don't like the part where they have to look at themselves.
No, they don't.
Um, I'm not saying I like it, but I'm okay with it. I'm okay. I'm also the kind of person that I'm okay with people not liking me. I don't understand it, and sometimes it's perplexing, and sometimes I'll spend a little bit of time trying to understand or figure out why, and then I'll eventually give up and just go, well, it doesn't fucking matter. Just because I understand something or maybe figure it out doesn't isn't going to change the reality, right?
Mhm.
So I've always been really good at understanding that part of it. That I think Perry Farrell wrote a song called "Can't Be Everybody's Friend." True song. Like it's impossible. Um, you can only do the best you can with what you know at that moment in time. And there are lots of things that I know now today, more information about myself, that when I look back from something 20 years ago, I go, fuck, well, I would have done that different. But I didn't know what I know then or know now. I didn't know then what I know now, right? So, um, but I can tell you that I did the best that I could then. Could I have done better? Sure. If I had been more aware and had a little bit more knowledge, perhaps I would have. Hard to say, but I think that's a lot of credit that we don't give ourselves. We expect a lot from ourselves. We expect to have it right. And I know social media doesn't help with that because everybody's living a perfect life on social media and everybody's always happy and they've always got all the nice things. And the reality is they don't. Um, but psychologically we believe that because we see
Yeah.
so much of it.
Because
We
it's
see so
not.
much of it and we go, oh, well, then there must be something wrong with me. Like all of these people, like every day there's somebody else. Like, when's it my turn? Right? When's it my turn to feel like this? And it's like, it's always your turn.
It's almost like putting out only the positive side of things and you know hiding and not being honest with what the dark and more negative sides of life look like.
Well, and
Like
that's
it's putting on a positive mask of you know what you want people to see rather than what's actually there and what's truthful and honest.
right. 100%. And that's why in the video clips that I've, started recently doing is that's what I try to highlight. Like, I don't try to highlight the fluff. I try to highlight the vulnerability, my weaknesses, you know, that I have to show people that, hey, I don't always have it right. I've never at any point in my life had it right all the time. Like sometimes I do, but I learn from it. And my hope is that people watching it or listening to it will go, okay, this isn't a straight line. Like this, there's going to be mistakes, and that's okay. And it's okay that I don't have it perfect or right now. It's okay. Like, and my hope is that people can go, okay, well, if he was able to navigate it and was going through something similar, then I can make it through too, right? Instead of, hey, I've got my shit together all the time, like, hey, go do this, hey, go do that. Like, I think it's disingenuous. I think that anybody that comes across like that is just out of touch with reality. Not just with the people that are watching it, but with themselves. Like they're out of touch with the fact that you're not, or maybe I've heard people say that there's just people that maybe believe that they are, but I don't even know that I believe that. I have to believe that there's something somewhere in somebody that says, I am not fucking always fucking right and perfect. So, but I think inserting a little or a lot actually of humility and being human really goes a long way if you're trying to inspire or if you're trying to help people move to a better place. You have to be willing to use yourself as the sample size, the example. And that means exposing, all of the little things that have been in the way and not being caught up with having to look perfect and right and good all the time. That means being able to say, yeah, I don't always have it right. And yeah, I do have this bad habit that's gotten in my way. And maybe you have it too. And being able to say, some days I can move through and past that. Some days I can't. Some days I fuck up. So, I mean, it's human. It's part of the deal.
And
Nobody has
I think mistakes and failure are a crucial part of the concept of humaning. Um, you know, and that kind of leads to this, but what do you believe that there is a true purpose, and what do you believe it is of the concept of humaning? What's the purpose of being human?
I think, yeah, it's funny you asked that question because I've been reading a lot about this lately. Um, I've read from a few different philosophers that at the end of the day, when we're on our deathbed and we know we're going to die, is that we realize all of the things that we tried to fix or tried to be right or tried to look good about or tried to have the most money or tried to whatever it is doesn't fucking matter. None of it matters. What matters is how are you experiencing the life that you're in now, right? Which is the foundation of what my coach talks with me on. That's what his whole premise is it's not about what to do right, what not to do wrong. It's, are you living the life that you want to have? And if you're not, what are you going to do about it, right? So I think that's what it's about. I think it's the realization that all the things that we think matter really don't.
Yeah. Well, that kind of reminds me of what I said the other day, about alignment and trying to align who you believe you are, who you want people to see you as, and who you actually are as one thing. I think that's part of coming to that closure of, yeah, this is the life I wanted.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, alignment's an important thing. That was something I didn't even see up until 9, 10 months ago. Again, working with my coach, like I, one of the first questions that he asked me was, "What are your values and principles?" And I went, "Fuck, I don't know." And it's like, well, then if you don't know the answer to that, then it's no wonder you're not having what you want, and it's no wonder you're getting a lot of what you don't want, because you don't even know what those things are. So like, even when I that's a question that I ask a lot of clients out of the gate. Same question. It's literally like the most important question to know. It's your North Star. Your values and principles, your core values and principles, are going to show you whether you have the right job or not, whether you have the right relationship or not, whether you're doing the right things in your life or not. Like, those guide you. Like, all you have to do is go, okay, for example, I got this new job and it's skinning deer. Okay, well, animals are important to me, and wildlife, so this isn't going to work for me, but it's a lot of money. Yeah, well, but money's not one of my core values and principles. It's important, but it's not a core value and principle. So it doesn't align. That's the alignment piece. But if you don't know what they are, then you're flying in the blind. It's like if, where do you live, by the way?
Utah.
Okay, so if I said, I'm going to come and visit you in Utah, I'll be there in however many days it takes me, and I don't even ask you for the address, you're going to hang up going, well, how the fuck's he going to get it? He doesn't even know where I live. He doesn't know the address. And if I had no map and I had no GPS and I just jumped in my car with nothing, how the fuck? Now, I might eventually get there. I might get lucky and maybe even get close to where you're at. But I'm never going to find you where you're at until I find the direction. So it's the same principle. Yeah. That's what core values and principles do for us. They tell us
what goals should be.
Well, it tells
what goals we should go after.
It tells us whether we're in the right place or not.
Yeah.
Whether we're with the right people or not. That's what it tells us. And if they're not aligned, then you can't be surprised to know that, well, I wonder why that didn't work. Once I learned that, I literally, just for fun, I did a deep dive on some relationships and old jobs that I had years back. And I went, fucking hell, this is why this shit didn't work. It's because these things weren't in alignment. And what happens is, when you don't know what your core values and principles are, you get what, I'm sure you've heard this called expectations, right? And expectations are really things that we want, but we don't say it. That's what an expectation is. So if, for example, I expect you to call me, every day, once a day, to see how I am, and you don't do it, guess what's going to happen? I'm going to be disappointed, maybe even upset. Why? Because I had an expectation that you would do that, but you didn't know. Maybe you would have done it, maybe you wouldn't have. But if I said to you, hey, could you call me every day and just check in on me? Now it's not an expectation, it's a request, it's an ask. Right? But oftentimes we have these expectations of things, situations, people, and we don't name it. So that's what happens when you're not aware of what your core values and principles are. Now you're operating from expectation. You're hoping something works out, but you can't see whether it's good or not good, because you haven't figured that part out. So all of these things, and I know it's getting long-winded, but all of these things are all working together. And that's why it can be challenging sometimes it's like all these spinning plates that are spinning in the air, and it's to be aware of all of them and to make sure that they're all working in sync together with each other. That's the trick.
And I think also part of understanding what each of those plates are doing and what purpose they serve for you is being honest with, where they are in your life and how valuable they are to you and whether they align with your core principles and values.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And listen, I'm not here to say that you have to be honest and honor your core principles and values to succeed in life. We both know there are people that don't do either of those and they still succeed. The question is which one promotes growth and another one doesn't so much. One of them has integrity to it and the other one doesn't. So I mean, both are possible. I guess it depends again, what's more important to you. One way is probably easier than the other. Mm-hmm. One way is harder, but more rewarding. Catch 22. I think for a lot of people want easy. That's what I find. They want easy. They don't want hard. They want a quick fix that'll just take them out of their misery, pain, suffering, whatever it is that they're experiencing. They just want out. And that's a great feeling when that happens, but it doesn't stick.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You're exactly right.
It happens sometimes.
Yeah, you're not wrong. Speaking of meaning and purpose in life, do you believe meaning is something that we discover or create, or some kind of combination of both?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's a combination of finding and creating. I think it's a collaborative effort. There was a great saying, and I'm trying to remember. A goal without action is directionless. What was the other piece? I'm trying to remember, and I don't want to get it wrong. That was the first half of it. I'll have to think on that. But essentially, if a direction without a purpose is meaningless.
Yeah.
So I think the meaning lies in the purpose. Like, what does it mean to you? Like, what does it mean? Whether it's rescuing dogs and cats, or you're helping less fortunate people. Kids, whatever it is, like, what does that mean to you? I think unless you can find your purpose and meaning, I would say that 90% of goals will go down in flames, because anything that you're trying to accomplish is going to have its fair share of challenges and failures. And if you don't have a solid purpose for it, then you're probably going to give up. Like, because the question will inevitably be, why am I doing this? Well, fuck, I don't know. Well, then why are we doing this? Like, it makes no sense. Like, so, but with the purpose, like for some people, like for hip hop artists, for example, and maybe even other musicians, but I hear this most with hip hop artists. Like they will tell you that they didn't have the same level and opportunities with education that some people had, whether it's because maybe their family didn't have a lot of money, or they were in neighborhoods where they didn't have access, to an education. So they took their talent, and their whole purpose was to take care of their family, their mom. They want to buy my mom a house. She suffered growing up, raising us. We went through a really tough time growing up. I want to take care of her. I want to make sure she's okay. And that's their purpose. Their purpose is literally because their mother is such an important figure to them that they will literally walk through fire to make sure that they do whatever it takes to succeed, to be able to take care of their mom or their dad or their brother or their wife or what kids or whatever it may be, right? So that's the purpose. It has to be something that means something to you.
Mm-hmm. And for me, I think discovering purpose gives us tools and knowledge to be able to create meaning.
Yeah. That's all what we make of it. The only people that have to understand it and have it mean something to is ourselves.
Let's see. I feel like this is probably a good place to stop. But I do have one more question, just because it is one that I ask every interview. It's one of my favorite ones. But what music, artist, album, whatever, taught you the coping mechanism of surviving inside of music when you can't survive outside of it or elsewhere? When life is so unbearable, that music saves your life because it gives you a safe place to exist.
There's so many different artists, bands.
What was the first that did it, though?
I would say this is going to maybe sound funny to you, and I'll explain why. But the first band that I think did that for me was the band Cinderella. So I was 12 or 13 years old at the time when Night Songs came out. And I was living at the time with my great grandmother, and I had a distant cousin that lived down the street, and he was 4 or 5 years older than me. And I looked up to him a lot, and he was older, and he was the cool cousin, and I wasn't really big into music at that point yet. And whatever I was listening to was whatever, everyone else was listening to on the radio. And I remember my cousin came over to my grandmother's house one day with an acoustic guitar and a cassette tape. And I was like, what the fuck is that? He's like, it's a guitar. And he's like, he barely could play it. I mean, he just, but he knew Misty Mountain Hop. He somehow figured out, and that's an easy song. It's like on one string, but he'd kind of figured out, and he played it kind of sloppy, but I just thought it was the coolest fucking thing ever. And so I wanted to try it. And then that's when I knew kind of sort of that this was something I was really interested in. Well, then he put on the Cinderella cassette tape at the time. He's like, dude, check this out. And I remember when Night Songs, the first song on the record came on, and I remember thinking, holy shit, what the fuck is this? And I started looking at the cover, and I see this purple cover with these guys with long hair, and they look real dark and ominous. And I was like, wow. And so from that, he gave me, I think it was a Motley Crue, Theater of Pain. And of course, Home Sweet Home is like the big heart pull song on the record. And I just started delving deeper and deeper into rock. And what made me fall in love with rock music that I wasn't getting from anything else I'd ever heard before was, we moved a lot growing up. My mom was a single mom, raising two kids. We moved all the time. Some years, like I said, I'd stay with my great grandmother in Kansas. So we got shipped around a lot. And so I was always an awkward kid growing up. I was very shy. And I wasn't really comfortable with talking with new people, especially in a school setting where there's hundreds of people, kids around, and everybody knows each other and they're in their little cliques, and here I am. And it was always an uncomfortable adjustment for me. And I eventually would, but it would take time, and it was just, I hated it. And I always felt like nobody really understood me, right? Seemingly, a lot of the kids I went to school with, they had their mom and dad, there was not many were divorced at the time, and they had nice things, and, they didn't have to bring their lunch to school. They could actually afford to get lunch at school, but listening to bands like Cinderella, Motley Crue, Black Sabbath, Led Zeppelin, like these bands were speaking to my social pains, like I felt understood, like this was a tribe of people that I could relate to, or were they relating to me? And so I would say there have been so many bands that have done that for me, but that's where it started for me. That's where I finally didn't feel so ostracized and alone. Like I felt that was the first time that I thought to myself, okay, there's other people out there that think and feel and look the same way that I do. And they're not conforming to anything. They're being totally in their fucking vibe, you know what I mean? Like they're not pretending like this is what it is. And a lot of people found it obnoxious, like even kids in my school were like, fucking those rock bands, like, rah. But that's what I loved about it. Because I identified with that, I could relate to that. And so that's always, rock music has always kind of been, kind of my vice for that type of stuff. And I also like a lot of like Americana music too. Like I'm a huge Ryan Adams fan, and tons of other similar artists to him. Like I love really quiet, deep, melodic, simple, emotional, thoughtful music of any kind, to be honest with you. Even if it's a pop song, like if it has a really, like if there's something about the lyrics that really just grab me, then I'm gonna love it. It doesn't matter what genre of music it is.
I'm like that too, but your description right there, for me, that is the Counting Crows.
Ooh, I've been listening to a lot of Counting Crows. I love the Counting Crows.
Anna Begins is the best. My favorite song.
I love Anna Begins. Love it, love it, love it, love it.
This is now the third interview that song has been mentioned in.
That is such a good, that whole album is great.
It's incredible.
When that record came out, I listened to it constantly, and I just put it on because I just watched the Counting Crows documentary on Amazon. I think
I need to watch that.
It's so good, and it just brought me back to that record, so I've been listening to it the last few days again. And Anna Begins is a great one. Perfect Blue Buildings. I mean, the whole fucking record is so good.
August and Everything After was the first like piece of physical music that I personally owned.
You know,
I had a cassette tape.
Counting Crows, I think, at least for me, like that was the first album that I heard that really dug deep into emotion. Really like into headspace.
Hmm.
You know, it dug deep into that. Like, and you just hear Adam like so descriptive. Like it's almost like, is he talking about me? Like he's that good with the descriptions of his thoughts and his feelings and
But he's also got that same kind of stream of consciousness kind of energy that yours does.
well, I appreciate that. That's a big compliment. I think he is a master at that, and I wish they still were out touring.
They are. I saw them in August. Yes.
I know. Oh, I know that he was touring, but was it Counting Crows?
Yes.
Okay, I need to. I need to.
They are in, I believe it's Europe right now. No, Australia.
Gotcha.
Australia. But yeah, they are. That was probably the biggest bucket list band for me to see. I almost got an opportunity to see them years ago, but my boyfriend at the time pregame too hard and got us kicked out before they started playing. And it took me like 20 years to see him again. And I finally did, and it was so worth it.
But I mean, round here, you just hear that guitar come on, you're just like instant, like, oh my God.
It rained the whole song.
Such a great song.
And the rain was that like, not like pouring, but just like that heavy rain that makes you feel something during that song. And it was amazing. That was an amazing live music experience.
I can almost picture what you're saying, like that, like with the lights and the steady rain coming down
at night.
And the guitar intro.
And piano, actually. He did it on piano.
Oh, wow.
He did the whole thing on piano, yeah.
Amazing. So such a
good. I'll send you the video. Oh my God, it was amazing.
It is.
That one. It might be Long December that I've got on there too.
That's like a masterpiece of a record.
Oh, it really is.
And I wasn't, to be honest with you, like when Mr. Jones, like when that came out, because that was the first song that came out by them, as you know, and I was like, it's a little too happy, like for me, but there was still like a bit of a darkness to it that I understood, but I didn't hate it. But it wasn't until I actually got the record and I was like, whoa, this, like, to me, and I'm not saying that Mr. Jones is a terrible song, but in my opinion, it's not the best song on the record by far. Like there's so many other great songs. They weren't radio type songs, I guess. Right.
Oh yeah. I mean, Anna Begins is not really all that radio friendly. Like that's a deep cut that most people don't want to feel that deeply.
Yeah. It's a heavy record for sure. Heavy record. But you should definitely check that documentary out. It's really,
I will for sure. Because like I'm obviously big on local music and hometown bands. But Adam Duritz is probably the most hometown band it gets for me because I grew up outside of Boston and then moved to north of San Francisco.
Yeah.
So I'm both a New England kid and a Bay Area kid, and he was both as well. And I think he moved around the same age too.
I remember, so it was right around just after August and everything after it came out. And there's a popular, very famous old school bar restaurant called the Formosa Cafe. It's down the street from me. And it's still there. It's been there since I think the early 50s. It's a really cool place. But when that record came out, that was like a happening spot to like hang out.
Mm-hmm.
And so me and my friends that'd be one of the places we'd go. And it was always packed on Thursday, Friday, Saturday. And I think it was a Friday or Saturday we were in there and it was packed. And I remember sitting at one of the booths and the place was full. And I remember I looked over and this guy walked in. I'm like, and it was Adam Duritz and he was by himself. And he walked in and he stood there. I'll never forget this. He stood there. Nobody came up and talked to him. I thought about it, but I couldn't muster up the courage. I was like, I don't want to bother him. And my friends were like, do that. And we were just all like, we weren't like gawking at him, but we were like, and nobody, like he wasn't there with a friend. He literally just walked in. He had his hands in his pocket and he was just looking around. He hung out for maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, and then he left. I don't even think he got a drink. He just stood kind of by the door, but he was like a wallflower. But it, it, like if the album, I just remember thinking like his personality is a perfect match to his personality on the record. Like he's just kind of a lone wolf observing, and I'll never forget that image of that dude. That's just has always stuck with me.
You know, you do that at your own shows, right?
Me?
Yeah. I've had that exact same moment of, oh my God, should I go say hi? And you're right up against the wall. No one's coming up to you. No one's saying anything. No one even recognizes you. No one knows you're there. But you're just sitting there by the wall, just observing.
Yeah.
And then you just kind of disappear.
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I've always been I mean, I've gotten a little better at it as the years have gone on, but like I don't know what to do with compliments a lot of the time. Like I don't know. Like I I guess I've never been good at taking a compliment.
Either.
I got to work on that.
Yeah.
I guess.
For me, it took, I think, people complimenting things in ways and things that I couldn't question. Like, yeah, you're right. I am really fucking good at that. I did that really well.
Mm-hmm.
And really, like, there not being any truth to having not being good at that, or
Right.
not being able to take that compliment. Like, not taking it would be dishonest almost.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I just don't take them well. Like I just feel so
awkward, uncomfortable.
That I think because I work so hard to not get caught up in the, who am I and do you know who I am? Like I hate that. Like I've always scoffed at, that elite mentality. Like, oh, like I don't know. I just well, whole nother different story. We'll do another time. But when we lost our first record deal with Warner Brothers, like I literally had an identity crash because I did get caught up. Like I'm fucking Wil Martin, and I'm fucking but and to the point to where when all that went away, I was wondering, fuck, who the fuck am I? Like now, what do I do? And so from that moment on, like that was a really tough period for me. And ever since then, I made a promise to myself like that, like the music that I create, it's not my identity. It's not who I am. It's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
It's an extension of myself, but it's not like all of that circus. Like, here's a good way to explain it. So I can't remember who I was watching or listening to, but they were asked, like, what's the one bit of advice that you would give to somebody that is interested in succeeding in business or some kind of project or thing they want to pursue? And his advice was just remember that none of it's for you. And I went, okay, where's he going with this? And he goes, and what I mean by that is this: when you succeed, you get all these perks, right? You get people throwing adorations and compliments. You get, gifts. You get, maybe you get a special parking spot at your job. Maybe you get a bonus because you reached a certain goal at this, or, on and on and on. He goes, but when all of that's done, then there will come a time where you don't get any of those things anymore. And it goes to the next person. And so all of these things that we get, the adorations, the all the gifts and all the experiences that we get that most people don't, aren't meant for us. They're meant for the people in those positions at the time, right? That's who they're for. They're not for me. They're not even for the next person coming in. They're for whoever holds those positions at that time. That's what those things are for. They're never for us only. And that's the thing I think that a lot of artists, myself included, get lost in. Like, we get accustomed to, well, I have to have this. I used to have this. Like, I should, and it's like, well, but that's not for you anymore. That's for somebody else right now. Like, it could be yours again, maybe, but right now it's not. It's never, we don't deserve any of that. It's just what comes with the territory of us being in that position or at that level of success at that moment. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just, that's, I think, probably the best bit of advice that anybody could hear, myself included. Like, that is apt. And that's what happened for me, when I went through that crash. I didn't get all those things anymore. And I thought that they were for me. Well, that was, I didn't realize that that's what I was learning then until I heard this recently. But that's what that was about. That was about me going, hey, where did this go? And where did these people go? They used to call me all the time and offer me to this and invite me to there. Like, well, that's for somebody else now. I'm not on that mountain at the moment right now. Somebody else is. And that's just the way life is.
I think that's one of the biggest things about the difference between internal and external validation, is that external validation is fleeting, and a lot of times it's not honest or truthful, but internal validation is what lasts a long time and leads to, I think, more success, because you have that confidence in yourself of, I know I can do this if I work for it.
100%. You're right. You are right on track with that one.
I think that's a great place to stop. And because people are going to want to know, I know you mentioned new music a couple months ago. At some point, do you have any tours, shows planned, anything? What's on the horizon for you guys?
So we have a couple new songs coming out. I think the first one, which is not on Humaning, this is a brand new single coming out on Judge and Jury Records. I think that comes out next month, and it's a song called Love Left. That's next month. And then we just announced Rockfest was announced today in Wisconsin. So we'll be on that. There's I think there's 2 or 3 more festivals that haven't been announced yet. That are Danny Wimmer presents festivals. So I think Incarceration is one of them. And I can't remember the other 1 or 2 that were on of those. But as soon as they're announced, we'll be announcing those 2. So definitely festivals, definitely a couple of new singles. We're also going to make a music video for the new single. We're also going to work on a video for a song off Humaning. And
Can I ask which one?
That's an ancient Chinese secret.
Okay. I'll wait. I'll be patient.
I'll be surprised. It's one of my favorite songs on the record, though. And what else we gotta go? Oh, we're in the process of trying to get vinyl copies, because we've been getting a lot of requests for vinyl copies of Humaning. I'm excited about that, even though I don't have a record player.
I don't either. I display mine.
Yeah. So we're gonna be doing that. And I'm even pondering doing CDs, because we've had a few requests for those. So yeah, and then also we're working on trying to get out on a tour later in the year. So fingers crossed, sooner rather than later.
You guys have a lot planned. I'm excited. And I hope other fans are too. Especially ones like the girl I ran into at karaoke last night when I said, I'm really anxious about this interview I'm doing tomorrow. And she goes, who are you interviewing? I go, Wil Martin. She goes, of Earshot? What?
Mm.
I thought they were gone.
Yeah.
And I go, no, they've got a whole new album. Pulled it up and played some for her, and she's excited. So
Yeah. That's been our biggest challenge for us, is because, you know, there was such a lengthy hiatus. A lot of people thought we just moved on. And so a lot of people are still discovering, that we're back at it. But we're also getting a lot of, like when we did that Saliva tour, we had a lot of people that had never heard of us, seen us. And
I was one of them.
yeah, I mean,
I will admit.
So been a really, really awesome thing too. I mean, the fact that we're still able to write music that relates to people and resonates with people. And I'm happy that we can continue to do that. And there'll be much more.
I'm excited. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. This has been a pleasure. Great interview, by the way. You shouldn't be so nervous.
Thank you. I'm gonna hit the unrecord button, and then we can. Where's the? Oops. There we go.